So today's show, I'm going to talk about how we can be a better support for the mental health of our veterans. A lot of times they're trained on how to go and fight, but nobody trains them on how to come home. So I want to use today's show and really share with how one of my companies, New Mentality, located in Mooresville, North Carolina, will be giving 2 veterans a month a free slot in our veterans training program. So if you are a veteran or an organization, nonprofit, or you know an organization or nonprofit that can benefit from this, please tune in to this show all the way to the end and share this message because we're going to talk about ways that our company can really help support the mental health, the brain functioning, and the overall mental and emotional wellness of our men and women serving our country on a daily basis. And if you're tuning in for the very first time, welcome. This is the Mental Fitness Matters Show. Please go to TracyAlston.com so that you can download previous episodes of this show and so that you never miss a show. Before I get into today's episode, I want to give a few statistics. An estimated 30% of veterans suffer from post-traumatic stress, major depression, or some other type of mental health condition. And there are 3 primary mental health conditions that veterans face on a daily basis, post-traumatic stress being the number 1. And this can happen from traumatic events. It can happen in military combat. So when we think about post-traumatic stress, it's not just strictly veterans who are suffering from this disorder. Assaults, sexual, physical assaults can happen, and natural disasters such as COVID-19. And stress and post-traumatic stress and traumatic events can have a long-lasting negative effects on our brain and our body. They can cause us to be more irritable, angry, rage, nightmares, and addiction. Number 2 is depression. And so depression is not just sadness, but it can be an overwhelm and a longer lasting period of not being motivated, the inability to get up and do the things that you naturally would do throughout your day. Traumatic brain injury is another mental health condition that we see oftentimes. And this can be the result of a significant blow to the head or to the body. And that can cause fatigue, headaches, drowsiness, and chronic pain. And so when we think about our vets, when they come home, less than 50% are returning in need of mental health care, and less than 50% receive it. That's a big number. Less than 50% of veterans returning home receive the mental health care that they need. And according to the Veterans Administration, approximately 22 veterans a day die by suicide. And believe it or not, when it comes to the mental health treatment of our veterans, getting them to support, there are so many barriers and so many hoops and holes that they have to jump through in order to get proper care and proper treatment. So when we think about really the quality of care that they're receiving and the timely manner that they're receiving it, there's a lot of barriers out there. So things that people don't know or not aware of. And when I think about that, really, when I think about my journey personally, and if you are tuning in for the very first time, I'm going to share a little bit about my story, but it was a veteran story who got me inspired and involved in doing what I do today with neurofeedback and biofeedback. And so my background, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I'm also board certified in bio and neurofeedback, and I'm a mental fitness consultant. And I'm the founder of 2 companies located in, one's in Mooresville, North Carolina, the other's in Cornelius, North Carolina. But as a licensed clinical mental health professional, part of what I need to do and what I have to do to stay licensed is go to conferences and trainings to get what's known as continuing education credits. And in 2010, I experienced a life-changing moment. I was at a conference in Cary, North Carolina, and we had a guest speaker for that event, and it was a veteran. And he attended that event via Skype, speaking to our group. He talked about and he shared how he had suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. He was on 36 different medications. He attempted suicide 5 times. He said it wasn't until he learned about his brain and his body through the science of bio and neurofeedback that his world changed. And so at the time that he was speaking to our group, he was down to 5 medications. He had been reintegrated back with his family, and he was traveling across the country, really via Skype, sharing the science of bio and neurofeedback, how it had changed his life, and he wanted more people to know about that service, those tools, and that training. And I remember sitting there, and I can really remember it as if it was yesterday. As a clinical professional, I can remember sitting across the chair from clients, people in a place, in a space, not sure how to get out of that space, not sure what to do next. Medications aren't working. So I remember sitting there like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about this service. How do I get trained? How do I get certified? And how do I offer it to the people that I'm serving on a daily basis who are struggling with trauma, depression, anxiety, medication after medication, contemplating suicide, not sure where to turn, where talk therapy is no longer working, medications are no longer working. Where do I go? Where do I turn? And so that veteran story really shifted how I viewed mental health, but also how I viewed being able to treat mental health. It gave me some additional options and tools to offer the people that I served on a daily basis. So I went and got trained, and I studied with one of the leading pioneers in the country, getting my board certifications in bio and neurofeedback, and opened up my first company in 2012, offering that service to treat clinical mental health disorders, giving people an opportunity to have a life without limits and being able to manage their mental health without the use of medications or being able to titrate down with medications. So veterans, I am passionate about. That is where the start of me learning more about the brain, learning more about the body and how it responds to stress came from a veteran story. And so being able to, on today's show, opening up our veterans program, being able to put 2 veterans a month through that for free at no cost. It's a 3-month program. We'll talk more about it. I am passionate about it because I know the things that we do and the services that we offer and the ability to see the brain in real time and understand how to train that can help save and change lives. So I'm going to talk about how we can support the mental health of our veterans through a service known as neurofeedback training. As I mentioned that guy's story, he said it wasn't until he learned more about his brain and his body that his world changed. And what I know as a clinician in the mental health world, a lot of things that we're taught is really in forms of talk therapy or medication management. But neurofeedback, it's also known as brain training. It's a non-invasive way for us to get feedback on how our brain is functioning in real time. So we're able to place sensors on various parts of the scalp and measure your brain's electrical activity. And with that information, we can see patterns of dysregulation, meaning areas of the brain that may have been stuck or not firing or functioning quite as well. With neurofeedback, we're not only able to see, but we're able to help retrain the brain on how to get out of its own way so that your brain can heal, so that it can repair, so that it can strengthen and create what's called a new neural pathway. So I know if you've heard in the past and decades before that our brain is what it is, we can't change it. That's not true. Our brain is neuroplastic. It has the ability to change. It has the ability to heal. It has the ability to learn something new. And when given proper feedback, it can get online and help reduce the symptoms that people experience when they've gone through trauma, when they're dealing with depression, when they're faced with addiction and anxiety and sleep disorders. The brain can relearn how to get back on track. And that is so important when I think about our veterans, because as I mentioned in the beginning, they're learning how to go over. They're learning all the things that they need to do from a physical standpoint, and a combat standpoint, from a self-awareness standpoint, from being more in tune standpoint. But who is teaching and training them and training their brain on how to come back to the life of a civilian and not in constant chaos and trauma and hypervigilance. So there are tools and there's technology available now to help support our nation's heroes. And so when we think about what causes an unhealthy or an unnatural brain pattern, 2 of the most common causes of a dysregulated brain or a brain that's not firing properly are traumatic experiences and head injuries, guys. Traumatic experiences and head injuries. And as we're all aware, as I just mentioned, veterans are at highest risk for both of those. Traumatic experiences and brain injuries. When I think about trauma and head injuries, they cause severe problems. They cause mood disorders. And those mood disorders can be depression, anxiety, addiction, rage, anger, irritability, memory issues. We also see with head injury and traumas, we see cognitive decline. So a lot of our veterans have memory issues and processing issues, tinnitus or ringing in the ear. Those can also be things that are kind of left underneath that surface when the brain has been inflicted with trauma or some type of injury. Sleep problems, insomnia. So the inability to shut the brain off, go to sleep, which is one of the most important things we can do for our brain to heal, is being able to get good quality sleep. And so a lot of times there's an inability to shut that brain off, power down, and go to sleep. We see attention issues on the rise. And so that can include things like ADD or ADHD. And so when we think about what happens when the brain is really distressed or not firing properly, there are a list of symptoms that I just listed off there that come along with that. And our veterans are at the top of that list for both of those categories when it comes to brain dysregulation. Okay? So how could neurofeedback possibly help with PTSD or post-traumatic stress or some type of injury? And so what neurofeedback really does there, it really begins to supply the brain with just information that can help regulate the automatic nervous system, the automatic stress response. Okay, so when we think about our brain, and if you've ever been scared or stressed or in the midst of some type of physical harm, emotional or psychological pain, those things are stress responses, which sends our body into the sympathetic nervous system state, which triggers the fight or flight response. Okay, that fight or flight response, a lot of times if you are experiencing multiple traumas or repeated traumas without any relief there, this teaches the brain to remain in this state of arousal even when it doesn't need to. So it teaches the brain how to stay in this fight or flight response state or shut down completely, even when the threat is no longer present. So think about that. Our vets are in the midst of situations, traumatic events, day in, day out. They are in situations where they're having to be on hyper alert day in and day out, even if a threat is not present. When they come back home, even if they're not in situations of that high intensity, high traumatic situations, their brain and body is still responding as if they were still there. And this is for anybody who's experienced some type of trauma or traumatic experience. So fight or flight response is going off without needing to really have to go off. It's still there. It's getting stuck in that state. So when we think about how neurofeedback can be a support, it's because it really gives you feedback and teaches your brain on how to break those unhealthy brainwave patterns. By being able to see the electrical activity that your brain naturally produces on a computer screen, you're going to get instant feedback of what your brain's doing in real time. So you'll know when the patterns are unhealthy, not optimal, but you'll also get feedback on when your patterns are more healthy and more optimal. And this begins to treat the core issues, I know as a clinician, a lot of times people come into my office and they're seeing us for various reasons, but trauma is a big one. And a lot of times what they do is what we ask a lot of times is, what are you noticing? What are you feeling? So they go down a laundry list of symptoms of how they feel, whether it's anger, irritability, memory issues, trouble sleeping, brain fog, fatigue, headaches. They list these symptoms. And our normal way of learning or teaching or treating is to, let's treat the symptom. Let's treat the symptom. If we can treat that symptom, then everything's okay. But really, it's so much more than just a symptom. The symptom is a manifestation of other things going on underneath the surface, that if we're not touching or treating that, then we're really only putting a Band-Aid on that symptom. Another thing can happen that can trigger an emotional response to bring those symptoms back louder and stronger than they were before. So the things that we do at my company, New Mentality, with using neurofeedback as a training tool to regulate the brain's natural and healthy energy, this helps treat the core issues, which will help alleviate the symptoms that are present on the surface. Okay, so when we start thinking about treating the mental health of our veterans, we have to think different. We have to do something a little bit different than what we've done before, because we don't want to just take care of their symptoms. We want to take care of their brain health, their emotional health, and their overall well-being. So how does neurofeedback help where other services are currently lacking or failing. It's so normal and it's so common for anyone who's suffered trauma to not want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to rehash and relive the experiences. But unfortunately, in my profession and other professions out there, the majority of our services that we recommend for this population rely on us talking and hashing through and reliving and going back under. And the amazing thing about neurofeedback and why I'm so in love with the field and where we're going and all the things that we can offer as we train and treat our clients is that talking is not necessarily needed in the beginning of this process. There's really no talking involved in your neurofeedback training process because neurofeedback doesn't train you. Neurofeedback trains your brain. That is the organ that we need to really focus mostly on because that's the one responsible for the symptoms that you're experiencing. So neurofeedback doesn't train you, it trains your brain. So in my practice, it's very rare that we start off with talk therapy, especially when we're treating trauma or head injury or something like that. We don't start with talk therapy because what we just learned, and if you're listening now, what you know is that the brain shuts down. When it's in that fight or flight state, it's not processing. It's not firing. It's not going to give you the best of its ability. It's going to shut down to protect you. And so what I learned, especially when I first started learning about neurofeedback, I loved it because what we're able to do is prime the brain first. We get the brain ready. We take the brain through the training program first. So that way, instead of it running into these walls or the blocks or the traumas or the things that are really kind of keeping it stuck, the brain is learning how to create a new pathway. It's learning that there's a wall here, so let me go to the right or let me go to the left. And through repetition, it creates a new way to get to the same goal. A lot of times with talk therapy, when we start there, when we're treating trauma or when we're treating some type of injury, when we start there, the resistance happens. And a lot of times it can leave our clients feeling like they failed, feeling like nothing's working, feeling like they need to up medications, feeling like, am I going to ever get better? Feeling like I'm better off not being here. And so being able to have people train their brain first, instead of putting the cart before the horse. We always tell our clients, we'll get to the part about talking and homework assignments, or if you tried some things in the past, don't throw all your tools away, because a lot of times we have people come into our office and saying they've tried this, they've tried that, nothing has worked. We say, hold on to the tools in your toolbox. Maybe it's not about nothing really working. Maybe we've just put the cart before the horse. Maybe if we get the brain in order, get the brain stronger, get the brain ready, and then put those same tools in place, they'll be much more effective. So we start our clients off before we even start the training process with what's called a brain map. That brain map helps us understand and assess where their brain is. So we do know that the brain has experienced trauma, multiple traumas, right? Our veterans have gone through things that we can't even imagine, things that they'll probably never even talk about. The only people that probably know is the people that were sitting right beside them in the moment. So there's a lot that's been buried underneath that surface. So we start our clients off with a brain map assessment that looks at the brain's ability to function and perform. So we can look at over 19 different areas of the brain. We see how well they focus, how well they process, how well they sleep. That sleep quality is important. How well their brain and body respond under stress, memory processing, executive functioning, decision-making, motivation. We pretty much see everything that's going on in the brain in real time. That allows us a baseline of where to start. Now we have a baseline of not only what they're reporting or not reporting, but we can actually see what's really happening behind the scenes. The core, not just checking off boxes, treating a symptom. We're getting to the root of the problems. Then we can create a game plan from that brain map to set up that neurofeedback training to really begin our clients on a program, conditioning and exercising their brain. Okay. So we don't want to just know where your brain is. That's when we'll take you through the neurofeedback training. So the things that you're not really comfortable talking about, some things that you may have just kind of put in the background that are still holding you hostage every single night when you go to sleep. Don't forget about the night sweats and the night's terror. So some people, I know we've worked with organizations in the past at one of my companies, New Mentality, where we were providing services to veterans coming through that nonprofit organization. And so many reports were the screams and the terror that they would experience, waking up in the middle of the night, loved ones being traumatized as well from the trauma that the vet had experienced. And so when the brain gets quiet and dormant, those things are coming up. So we got to make sure we're treating that, guys. We can support our professional mental health. We can support our military personnel a lot better if we're taking care of their mental health in a different way, in a way that's actually treating the organ responsible for a lot of the symptoms that they're experiencing. So that's through neurofeedback training and brain mapping. And what we're going to do at New Mentality, we're going to be offering through our veterans training program. So if you're an organization out there, or if you've been listening to this, or you know somebody who could benefit from this, please make sure you share this with them. We're going to be sending 2 veterans a month for free through our program. 2 brain mapping assessments, so that initial assessment will give us a baseline of where they are. Then we'll send them through a training program of the neurofeedback, which is the way that they can actually begin to exercise their brain to get back on track. And we work closely with other physicians and prescribing physicians and the team that's already in place, mental health and licensed counselors. So just know that this wouldn't be something taking away from what they're doing. This is going to be complementary to what they're doing. But because creating that team, having that community and network is just as important as the treatment they're receiving. Familiarity and consistency matters, okay? So just know when you're coming into us, if you're sending your veterans through this, they won't be starting something completely new and leave what they're doing. This is going to be a complement to what they're already doing, and we can be additional support to that treatment by seeing and understanding what's going on, and then we're going to take them through a 30-day training. If they can come in, it's going to be a 3-month program. They'll get 30 neurofeedback sessions, and they can use those sessions whatever fits their schedule. But those sessions we recommend at least 2 to 3 times a week. And so if you're local, this is something that you really can take advantage of, especially being in our office or near our office. If you could come in 2 to 3 times a week for 30 minutes, 20 to 30-minute sessions, get your life back by getting your brain back. Get your life back by getting your brain back. So that is how I want to begin to really say thank you. I see you. We support you. Your sacrifice, your service, our solution. We can help. So if you or a loved one out there has been struggling with trauma, post-traumatic stress, you got a veteran in the home, you know a veteran in the community, you're associated with an organization or a business or organization, please reach out to us. We can support you on this journey. And a lot of times what we see is people don't want to reach out because they're not sure how that's going to look or how that's going to affect other things that they have going on. But when I talked about those statistics, 22 a day committing suicide, that's too much. 1 a day is too many. And so I want you guys to know that does not have to be the way. If you can get your brain back on track, if you can get things firing again and feel more like yourself, calm the central nervous system, it changes your outlook on everything. Okay? I want to say thank you to all my veterans out there. And I want my Mental Fitness Matters community to share this message and go out and shine bright like the stars that we are. Be kind. Be kind. It matters. I see you. I can't wait to see you guys next week. Have a great week. See you soon. If you or a loved one are interested in taking advantage of this offer, our Veterans Training Program, sending 2 veterans through a month, please contact us at 704-799-1270. 704-799-1270. Thank you for joining us today on Mental Fitness Matters. Tune in every Thursday at 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. for more tips, tools, strategies, and solutions that will help you reach your peak mental fitness. My name is Tracy Austin, and you've been listening to Mental Fitness Matters.